Hey everybody, my name's Justin Case, and we are going to be talking about the helium vote. The vote is now open for many of you who are not aware, and that vote is on HIP 54, as it says here, H3 DEX-based POC targeting, and the other is HIP 55, and that is about Validator Challenges. The vote, as you can see just by looking right here, is quite for both of them, and I gotta say I'm not in any disagreement with that. I'm very excited about that. And why am I excited? I'm excited because I get very frustrated with my hotspots. I'd say in the last 2 weeks, every time I check a hotspot, 2 out of the 10 that I have are always down. They're down because they can't update to the newest firmware, or for whatever reason, they're stuck on a block, and I have to shut them down for 30 minutes. Sometimes that works. Then they roll back to a firmware from like a week ago, and it takes 3 days for it to sync and get updated. And finally, then, even once it is fully synced with the blockchain, it takes another 24 hours before it's online and making rewards. And it's super frustrating. Well, this can change once they introduce light hotspots. So let's just be clear, light hotspots are not the data-only hotspots. Those data-only hotspots that they have out right now, they only transfer data and they don't make proof of coverage rewards. So most of us have full hotspots. Now, full hotspots, they're doing everything like I've just talked about. They're syncing to the blockchain, they're sending data, they're communicating with each other to plan out challenges, when they're going to beacon, etc. All of these other things that they're doing. And quite honestly, it's all those processes that cause problems. So by switching to light hotspots, we can remove a lot of those issues. And as it talks about here, light hotspot properties, a hotspot on the Helium network that via a validator can participate in proof of coverage beacons and witnesses and forward data packets. So validators are taking a huge chunk of that processing. So our full hotspots can therefore become light hotspots. It also, as it says, does not store a copy of the blockchain, so it eliminates the synchronization problem, which I have had and many of you have had. I gotta say though, it's really my rack miners that have this problem. But even then, if you look at Bobcats that have 1 gigabyte, or let's say the OG Helium miners that Helium used to sell, all of them just don't work nearly as well. And once light hotspots are put into effect, we won't have all of these synchronization issues or being stuck on a blockchain. Now, some of the issues here is, well, it doesn't create challenges, so the validators create the challenges, or would create the challenges, does not participate in consensus groups. It relies on validators for block production, and it will no longer depend on libp2p or gossip. Instead, using a new framework to communicate between distributed systems. So it's not going to be doing the P2P, and they are, as it says, eligible to earn HNT, and that's the important aspect for you and me. My understanding also is these do not require port 44158 to be open. We don't need to worry about being relayed, or rather not being relayed anymore. So light hotspots are going to solve a lot of problems. But in order for them to be made available, we have to do a few things first. So that means the validator challenges. As I just mentioned, validators have to control the challenges, not the hotspots anymore. So as it says here, this HIP changes how proof of coverage challenges are generated and submitted to the Helium blockchain. By moving challenging to validators, the network stability will be greatly increased. Syncing issues, all relayed states, port forwarding or firewall issues, and SD card failures due to excessive load will be eliminated. Now, that all sounds really positive to me. Hotspot bandwidth consumption will be a fraction of what it is today, because, well, it's not syncing to the blockchain, right? And this will also reduce the cost of hotspot hardware. Now, I got to say, as it says, as processing and storage needs will greatly decrease, I don't care about that. Quite honestly, I'm a little frustrated with it. I don't want more hotspots out there. And maybe I'll talk about that towards the end, because that's not the point of this. In order to make this move, the economic reward of 0.9% of the total HNT rewards for creating POC challenges will move to validators as well. All right, I got to say, a lot of people I saw were concerned with the loss of 0.9%. But when I look at like Hotspotty or something else and see how I am currently making HNT, POC challenges are like 2% or less of what I make. I'm honestly, I'm not concerned. Fine, give it to the validators. If I give that to the validators, and that means I don't have a problem where I'm offline for 5 days out of a month, that's good for me, and that's probably good for you too. All right. Approving this HIP implies that the community has reviewed the implementation of the relevant chain variables. We will consider this proposal as approved if it passes, blah, 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 blah. Look, this is a good thing. And I show this first because HIP 55 they can implement. I'm not going to say quickly because they don't know when everything is going to be done. And then we can move over to light hotspots. But that all said, if we change over to Validator Challenges, and again, all of this happens, syncing issues, all relayed states, port forwarding or firewall issues, and SD card failures due to excessive load will be eliminated, then I am good. Let's get this going as soon as possible. Okay, now that all being said, we have HIP 54. HIP 54, this gets a little more confusing, but let's read it first. This is a proposal for a more scalable replacement for proof of coverage targeting using an H3-based index. We are proposing as a HIP to communicate and acknowledge that this is a change to the current implementation, but we believe it still falls in the original intent of proof of coverage. So, understanding what this means is for targeting, it relates to beaconing. When beacons go off and how we choose which beacons will go off. In the past, my understanding is this was a randomization that was done within the hotspots. And basically, now we are trying to recreate that randomization, but having this now happen in the validators. I'm a little confused by this, in which I would rather go into more details and see what people have to say. So I'm just going to look at the motivations here. The current targeting mechanism relies on a global list of asserted hotspots. This list, as the network grows, is increasingly expensive to maintain and examine. Additionally, this list does not support garbage collection, so inactive hotspots are counted towards targeting probability, leading to targeting skews in hexes with many inactive hotspots. So that being said, if you live in an area and there are many inactive hotspots, which happens to me, there are quite a bit in the Denver area, maybe not exactly where I live, but when I look at how many in Hotspotty are in the red, there is quite a lot. So getting rid of those in this research to decide what hotspots will beacon sounds like a positive thing. All right. The goal of this proposed work is to maintain the existing targeting semantics, as closely as possible, but rework them to operate on a more scaled data structure. A secondary goal, a more scalable data structure. The big point there is we have over 500,000 hotspots already out there. It is too much load on the network. They need to come up with a more feasible solution. And I think we're all for that. We just don't want it to crash. are hotspots in the process. So let's just cross our fingers on that. A secondary goal is to reduce the active use of this edge case in order to enable more frequent proof of coverage activity in an area. So, point being is, as we talked about before, it won't be dealing with inactive hotspots. So, hopefully, it will actually increase the beaconing activity. Again, I'm going to cross my fingers. We don't believe this particular edge case is being exploited in a widespread manner, although we have seen a few instances of it. With the publishing of this HIP, however, we believe it may become more interesting to arbitrate. Why use such a big word? I don't know. People who want to make money is basically what it's saying there. So they think that this will actually make us more money. That's my guess. All hotspot owners are directly affected by this HIP. It should improve the fairness in targeting for proof of coverage, but may affect those hotspot deployers who are taking advantage of the current mistargeting behavior. So that being said, I'm not sure how much of the incorrect mistargeting information as I understand it here. I mentioned it before related to inactive hotspots, but I think they're talking about people who, they have a bunch of hotspots in their house, in their basement, that are all pinging each other. So what they're saying is it still may allow those people to take advantage. But I think they should just be saying here, look, it should be more fair, but at the end of the day, people can game the system. And, that's why we had the vote previously, right, on having that blacklist so we could make sure people did not game the system, or at least tried to prevent it. And I'm still curious what's going on with that. I've not seen a lot about that blacklist. Is it published? Can we look at it now? I thought we were supposed to be able to look at it now. Let me know what's going on. If you know what's going on, please let me know in the comments. Okay, I could go into this detailed explanation, which looks at H3 Resolution 5. Looks like they take a look at all of the hexes within that area. My guess is they remove the ones that are not active, and then they create some sort of targeting selection that hopefully is as fair as possible in its randomization. All right, I'm not going to read the rest of this, but again, my point being is these are, to me, positive. I think that as I'm watching the vote happen here, I think that these are good things. We want light hotspots. We want to see our hotspots not go down. And we want to see more hotspots beaconing more regularly. So hopefully this will do it. And hopefully it will reduce the load on the network in general. And with the reduced load, hopefully we won't see the same kind of problems that have been occurring as the network, let's say back in November, was reaching 400,000 at that time, and we were having even more and more issues. I just want to see less issues. I want to see Helium last for the long run because I want to keep getting my rewards. But we'll see what happens during that halving in another, 18 months? Something like that. Okay, that's another story. One other thing I wanted to mention here is, many of us, we talk about how frustrating it is that so many more hotspots are coming online, and now we're going to be looking at even more as light hotspot hardware becomes locked down and they can start selling light hotspots. I would love to see a HIP proposed where people might say we could do the same thing, kind of like Planet Watch. I'm going to say kind of like them. I know they have some sort of licensing thing. I would love to just look at Helium and all the hexes, and I would love some sort of licensing whereby we license a hex. I think that would be amazing. What if we licensed a hex, and as they're looking at this whole targeting process, we license a hex that which makes our hotspot on that hex a priority. So that doesn't mean that other people can't go into that hex. It just means that now, as we're talking about changing the way proof of coverage is targeted, it implies that we are sort of the main owner. And if certainly we don't witness a beacon, someone else, well, I guess this is related to actually beaconing. But my point being is, my point is simply that I want to see an option whereby we don't have so many redundant helium hotspots out there, and because of that fact, there won't be so many also inactive hotspots out there that make no money but are causing the problems that make us do things like need to implement this H3 DEX-based POC targeting. Doing something like licensing a hex and making then your hotspot be the priority hotspot within that hex. I think that makes sense. But let me know what you think. What do you think would be a good way of reducing the amount of redundancy that's unnecessary for the network, but as well at the same time keeping some sort of fairness in place for people who are looking to place hotspots? All right. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like content like this, and happy mining.